Hello YouTube, this is Asatsu 5 and today I'm reviewing the SRP 775 Seiko, which is this one right here, also known as the Turtle reissue. This is the SKX. It's just kind of there for comparison. When I do any review, whether it be a knife, gun, whatever, I like to get the stats and specifications out of the way and then I do the actual review. So this is obviously a Seiko. It's the SRP 775. Has a Hydrex window or lens. It is 45 millimeters diameter on the case. Case thickness is 13 millimeters. The case material, as with the bracelet, is stainless steel. The bandwidth is 22 millimeters. It has a unidirectional bezel. I'll tell you why that's important later. And has a day-to-date complication, 13.76 ounces, automatic self-wind movement, and it's 200 meters water resistant. Now, something that you need to note about this watch, that this is a true diver watch. I don't know if, yeah, here it is. Here's my Swiss watch. A very, very cheap Swiss watch, but I like telling people there's a Swiss watch just to make me sound fancy. This is the Winkel Grenadier, and you'll notice, well, you probably can't see it, but this is 200 meters water resistant. But it's okay. It says it on the box, but not on the watch, so you can't see it. Oh, it says it. But yeah, this is 200 meters water resistance, but this is not a dive watch. It has a unidirectional bezel, which is relatively difficult to turn, but it doesn't have a screw down crown. So this is not a true diver. You can shower with it, you can probably swim with it, but it's not a true diver. This is a true diver's watch. Some people call them desk divers because most people who own them don't dive with them. But I'm going to make a case that if you're certified in scuba, I'm an advanced open water certified scuba diver with PADI. But if you only scuba dive a few times a year, or if that, if you're not scuba diving for a living or on a monthly basis, you know, this is probably a good thing to have. If you scuba dive for your job, or if you scuba dive on a real regular basis, you might want to invest in a dive computer. It'll make life a lot easier. But if you're not well off to dive on a real regular basis, I think a dive watch is the better way to go for a few reasons. One, you buy a dive computer and you only dive a couple times a year, if that. That's not a good return rate. It's not a good value. You're not using it on a regular basis. A watch, on the other hand, you can use on a daily basis, no matter if you're in the water or not. You can use this to tell time on your day, at your job, or when you're just hanging around town. You can wear it. It's pretty attractive looking, in my opinion. And also, because it has a unidirectional bezel, you can use it to time things. When it comes to analog watches, the unidirectional bezel is how you kind of keep tabs on things. You put the 12 o'clock position, this arrow, on the minute hand, and I kind of moved it past, but that's alright. And you know when the minute hand moves to the 10 minute mark or the 20 minute mark or whatever, you know that 10 or 20 minutes have passed or 50 minutes have passed. So the unidirectional bezel is quite handy, you know, in day-to-day life. If you want to time how much you're cooking when you're cooking something, or you want to time your exercise routine or whatever, you can do that with the unidirectional bezel. And what the unidirectional bezel is used for in scuba diving is to measure your bottom time. It has nothing to do with to measure how much oxygen you have in your tank. It's just to measure how long you've been underwater, what your safety stop should be, and that's pretty much all that's used for. And the fact that it's unidirectional, it won't get bumped back. So if it bumps and goes forward, you're just shortening your dive. You're not increasing your dive. So the dive isn't getting more dangerous than it has to be. It's just becoming shorter than you want it to be. So if you bump it, instead of having a 30-minute dive, you're going to have like a 28-minute dive, for example. You know, I'm just pulling those numbers out of the hat, but you know, it won't mess up your safety stops. Some things that make this a diver's watch and not a standard water resistant watch is that it has a screw down crown. That means you have to unscrew the crown in order to get it to come out, and then you have to press the crown back in and tighten it back up before you go scuba diving. And that's to make sure that nothing snags the crown and makes it pop out unintentionally. Although this crown is somewhat recessed into the case, so it's going to make it more difficult to do that anyways. But still, it's just a safety precaution to make sure that your watch doesn't get flooded when you're scuba diving. It also has a screw down case back. You know, some case backs will pop off. You know, you can pretty much just pry them off with a knife. I don't recommend using a knife, but you know, you can use a tool to pop it off. Some of them are screwed with screws. This is pretty much how dive watches are made, is with this screw back. You have to have a special tool to remove it. And you know, it has a seal, a gasket, and you know, so that's how it stays waterproof. I'm going to get a measurement for you. This is a 45mm case, but I want to get you a measurement including the crown, and it's an unsigned crown. That means there's no logo on it. So let's see if I can do this. And I'm still battling the chronometer. Not chronometer, but okay. And this is more difficult than I thought. I tried to film this video earlier and I got it like right on the first time, and now it's going to be difficult. Okay, it is 46.7mm from on its widest point. I think. Let me try repositioning. Okay, 47.3. 47.3mm at its widest point. I already explained the unidirectional bezel, which is relatively easy to spin. And something to keep in mind with Seikos, their unidirectional bezel, this is the 12 o'clock arrow right there. When you line it up with the 12 o'clock chapter ring, they don't always line up perfectly. They're usually off to the side a hair, or either to the left or to the right. Not a big issue, but for collectors and watch aficionados, that's something to keep in mind. Which, if you're a watch collector watching this video, you probably know all of this already. This review is for the layman when it comes to watches, because I'm relatively new to watches as well. But I can tell you about my experiences with this watch. I can't tell you how to tell how many seconds it loses in a day or anything like that. But I can tell you the experiences I had with this watch. And I'm new to automatic movement watches, and I had this for a couple of weeks, and I'll tell you two significant things that happened in those few weeks that I had this. One, I had to get the bracelet sized. I took it to a local jeweler, and this is pin and cup, or pin and barrel, or pin and pipe, whatever you want to call it. Bracelet construction. That means that there's a pin, and then there's like a little barrel that fits over that pin to secure it inside the bracelet. And if it was just simply a pin or a simple bracelet, I could probably do it myself, but I was like, you know what, this is pretty intimidating. I'm going to take it to a jeweler and get it professionally sized. And I got it sized. And let me put this watch on so I can demonstrate kind of what happened without actually doing it. I was at work, and I lifted my wrist to read the time, and it launched my watch off of my wrist and skid across the bathroom floor at the school I was working at. And that was not a very good thing for me because I spent a good bit of money on this watch, and I wasn't happy with the fact that it slid off. And what happened was the jeweler didn't properly seat the pipe or the barrel or the cup, whatever you want to call it. So it wasn't fully attached, it was just hanging on by a hair. And when I slung my wrist up to read the time, the watch shot out about 10 feet and skid across the floor. So that's something significant about this watch, is if you get it resized or if you get the bracelet sized, that's something that might happen. And I'm going to talk about the benefits of a Nato watch or a Nato band here in a little bit. Something else significant that happened is that I'm new to mechanical watches. I was setting a time and I went past the time that it was, and I spent it backwards to correct the time. I'm not an expert on this, but I've come to the conclusion that's a very bad thing to do. And I ended up breaking the stem, I think, and the clutch wheel. And my local jeweler could not repair it because this is a proprietary movement. And I had to send it to the Seiko warranty center in somewhere, I think it's New York, I can't remember. But I had to send it to their U.S. warranty office to get it repaired. It cost about $170 to get it repaired, which I wasn't too happy about either, but I already spent the money on the watch. I love the watch itself. I love the aesthetics of it. I'm very happy with the watch itself, so I wanted to repair it. So if I wanted to wear the watch, I had to repair it, and I had to spend that extra money. So it's just been a big learning experience wearing a mechanical watch. And those are two very significant things that I learned with this watch. Is one, that if the bracelet isn't secured correctly, that it can fly off. I learned that if you jack with the crown inappropriately, that you can break the clutch wheel and the stem. Something I also want to point out, this is a diver watch, and it has a wetsuit extension. Let's see if I can show this. Let me move it right here. There we go. That's the wetsuit extension. So it's hard for me to mess with this behind the what you call it, tripod, but that gives you just a little bit more length, so it will fit around your wrist and wetsuit. Well, mostly about around your wetsuit, so you can wear this on top of your wetsuit when you're scuba diving. But normal people will never use that feature, just scuba divers. Something that's often mentioned, let me get my magnifying glass, about the 12 o'clock position is that it has a hilted sword. Let's see if I can show that. There it is right there. They call that the hilted sword, which I think is incorrect. That is just a sword and maybe a stone maybe. But technically all swords have hilts. Hilts doesn't refer to it being inside of something. That is just the handle and guard. But I thought I'd show that to you because I thought that was cool. Me being a blade guy, I like swords, I like knives, daggers, all that kind of stuff. So that's a design feature that I really appreciate. This has indices instead of numerals. When it comes to, numerals can be indices, but when it comes to watches, you normally have Roman numerals, Arabic numbers, or Arabic numerals, and just little indices that are just dots or circles that tell you that this is the 1 o'clock position. You kind of have to memorize what number it is, but they're not actual numbers. They're just markers to tell you where those numbers would normally be at. And the hands and the indices are loomed. They have lumination. And I got my Chloris XT2CR right here, my newest EDC watch. I want to show you that illumination. I'm not going to turn off all the lights because I don't think it's necessary, but I will turn off this light. But I want to show you the loom. So we're going to charge it up, and you can see that it glows really bright even in this relatively lit up area. Turn this light on, can't tell so much, but with just my top light on, you can tell this it's illuminating. And the only feature that I really don't like about it, and I understand why they did it, but they put the loom on the opposite end of the second hand. So that little lollipop right there is not actually pointing at the time. The time is being pointed at right there across from it. So they do that because they can put more loom on the lollipop if it's on the wet opposite end of the actual pointing end of the the second hand, because if they put the loom on the pointing end of the second hand, it'll be too heavy and it'll be off balance. This is, let's see, let me look on Amazon and see how much we're selling this one for. You know, MSRP, you're not really expected to pay MSRP, but it's like $500, I think, depending where you look. That's how much it's showed on the box. Let's see, about $260 online. I paid somewhere around that on a website that I'm probably not going to use anymore, just because, well, I could use Amazon. But I went on a different website that basically had a warranty, and I didn't know the warranty conditions until I already took it to my local horologist to have him look at it, and then it voided the warranty. So I was a little disappointed in that, but no big deal. Got it fixed. I'm happy with the watch. This has pretty much oh, let's talk about the some of the features in the crown area. This has both hacking and manual wind-up. So let's just say this watch is dead. You want to charge it up. With the SKX, you have to kind of swing it around to charge it. This one, you can unscrew the crown, pull it out just a little bit, and you can charge it by spinning it or rotating the bezel. Then I kind of hate to do this because I have the time set already, but it has hacking, and what hacking does is when you pull the crown all the way out, the second hand stops, and you can sync it to a master clock. Like if you have an atomic clock, your cell phone, something like that, you can set it and sync it with a master clock to get more accurate time. This feature is a cool feature, but I find it not necessary because it being a relatively affordable mechanical watch, unless you keep it on a winder, which I don't necessarily recommend, it's going to lose time regardless. So you sync it to the atomic clock or your cell phone, it's going to lose time overnight. It's still going to be relatively accurate far as the minutes and hours are concerned, but the seconds are going to slow down. So that's just something that you need to accept with a mechanical watch. I haven't experienced the high-end mechanical watches like Omega or Rolex, but with these, they pretty much stay accurate all day, and then the following day, if they're fully charged when you first put them on, they'll stay accurate for far as the minutes and hours concerned, but the seconds will be off. And then I think it's like a 48-hour charge life or run time. After that, you know, you have to rewind it and reset it. I mentioned, I'm going to put it back on its pillow or watch sofa, whatever you want to call it. I mentioned that I'm going to talk about the benefits of the Nato strap. By the way, this is a Blue Shark Nato strap. One of the best you can get, and still decently affordable. But it's still pretty expensive at the same time as far as Natos are concerned. But with a NATO or Zulu strap, whichever one you want to use. It's connected to both. The one strap is connected to both spring bars. So if one spring bar were to pop loose, all you'll have is a flappy watch, that flaps up and down, but it'll still be connected to the other one. So the watch will still be connected to your wrist. And if I'm going to scuba dive, I'd probably want a NATO strap as opposed to a bracelet. And like I said earlier, this band is only connected to one spring bar on either side. So if one spring bar gives out, the whole watch, you're going to lose the whole watch, and that's why it slung off on me. I love NATOs, I love bracelets, but if you're going to scuba dive with a watch, I'll recommend the NATO watch. If you're going to do any kind of heavy activity, I'll recommend the NATO strap. And usually, how the world perceives things, NATO straps are considered to be more casual. Bracelets are a little bit more formal, and then leather is even more formal. But I have something against putting leather on a diver watch. It just doesn't seem right. I'm not saying you can't do it, but when I wear a diver watch and I'm wearing it in more formal occasions, I'm usually going to wear a bracelet. But I will say this, if you get a NATO strap like this, the black and gray, they call this the Bond strap because it's what Bond is associating with wearing it. I think you can pull it off in more formal occasions just because of the James Bond story. He's often wearing a tuxedo with a diver, whether it'll be Omega or Rolex with a NATO strap. So if you get something that's not crazy colorful, I think you can pull off a NATO strap in a formal occasion. And I really do like NATOs for the extra security and the fit. So I really like this. And if you're interested in this strap, you go on Blue Shark, and they describe it as a seatbelt like material. I think it's thicker than a seatbelt, but it's very glossy feeling and smooth. You'll notice that the I guess I'll call this the tongue. I'm not sure if that's the legitimate term for it. The tongue has its own cutouts. They're not circles. They're cut out in perfect squares to fit the tongue. They're just more finely fit. A lot more fit and finish to these. You can buy NATOs like this one I got. It's a cheap NATO for around 12 bucks all day, every day. This is around a $40 NATO, and there's a good bit of difference between them. To be fair, this one's older, but this one is just duller, not as crisp. You can see the colors fading on it, and this is just a nice little NATO. But if you want a big collection of NATOs that you can switch out, the cheap ones are a good way to go. But if you want one good one, I'll go with Blue Shark. It's by far my favorite NATO that I've tried so far. So that's basically it for the watches. The reason why I decided to get me some diver watches was because I wanted a watch that I can wear in just about any situation. Formal occasions, casual occasions, at the beach, out in public, funeral, weddings, just about any situation I want, I can wear that watch and it'll fit the bill. And that's why I wanted a diver watch, because I wanted something that I can be in the ocean with and I can be out in town with and not feel like I have some kind of G-Shock or something. I wanted something that's classy looking but is versatile enough that I can wear it in pretty much any occasion. So that's it. I'm a Satsu 5 and I'm out.